This is actually up, as usual. I'm like, you know what? For once, let's just go live and not even check and see if we're live. Like, you hear about those horror stories and people recording podcasts, and then they find out, like, later on that they weren't even, like, recording. So, like, an entire podcast, like, gets thrown into the shitter. It's like, God, that sucks. I feel like that happened to us at one point. Like, the battery died or something. Back when we used to have to record it on that, when I would bring over my, like, camera, and we would, like, just record it with the mic from the camera.
Yeah, I think it did.
And it, like, cut out the podcast at some point, which sucks. Jesus! I'm like, yeah. Okay. I'm sure this is great for all our listeners. I'm sure they're like, this is the greatest podcast ever. Fucking kill me.
Alright, sorry, I'll stop.
Okay. I think that we're live. I'm trying to figure out here, sorry. Sometimes it takes a second for it to actually, like, show up as live, even though it says we're live. You know what I mean? So, this is really not super great entertainment, I guess, for the podcast, but just have to make sure that all this is working and everything before we delve deep into the analysis of this fucking movie. Do you have anything to say, Matt, before we get started? Any proclamations to make?
No, I'm ready to roll. Ready
Damn,
to do this.
That was quick. Holy shit. He had no proclamations. Okay. Well, yeah, it looks like we are live. So, I guess let's just start with nerd news. Do you have any news, sir, that is worthy of telling?
Nerd news. Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding. Ah, oh my.
Yeah, so my news this week is that they're making a sequel to Willow.
Sweet. This is why I
Is
put
it?
that. Well, no, I said sweet. I'm glad you put this down because I actually had a couple, just in case you picked this one. Because this was actually I have two nerd news, and one of them was yeah, they're making a sequel to Willow, or they've been talking about it for like a long time, kind of like how they're like, we're making a new Indiana Jones, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, and
I don't know
spoilers
anything
for this
about
episode.
it though. Do you know?
Warwick Davis is coming back.
Right. Val Kilmer's kind of like not in a great spot as far as last I saw, like as far as his health. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, he had like throat cancer.
Right.
So I don't know if he can talk or has trouble talking now.
Right.
But
So I was kind of like, I'm not really, because I mean, honestly, you could, if they realistically wanted to make another one, which I feel like that might have passed. Like they probably could have gotten away with making like multiple fantasy style kind of like adventures with those characters back in the day. You know what I mean? But now it's kind of like, I mean, even then, it's one of those things where it's like.
And spoilers for this episode, I may take the mic stance on Willow this time around.
Oh.
Like
God.
when you texted me that we were doing Willow this week, I was like, fist pump, yeah, love Willow.
Yeah.
And then we'll get into it, but as I watched it again, I was like, oh, no.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so.
Sorry, Kevin.
So, what was I gonna say? Yeah, I don't really know much about the sequel, possible sequel, other than we've heard that it's gonna be getting made, possibly.
Yeah, will it go the sequel trilogy route or the Mandalorian route in terms of quality?
Right.
We'll find out.
True.
Could go either way.
Well, I have something that's even more speculative. Not really, because I know they're going to do this eventually. But I guess since Mario Kart 8 has been out for like 3 years on the Switch, and then it's 6 years old of a Wii, like a portable Wii game, a Wii U game. That there's rumors of them finally making a Mario Kart 9 that was supposed to come out like possibly this year, but because of COVID, like it was either 2020 or 2021, so it could have actually got pushed back to possibly 2021 or 2022. But like the rumor is that they're actually going to switch it up, and like, you know, it'll be the same kind of game and stuff, but they're going to actually bring in more like Nintendo characters rather than just, you know, scraping the bottom of the barrel and being like fucking baby, you know, Peach and shit like that, which I never understood why they never did that before. Like, they started to do that with the last one by bringing in like Link and like other characters, but to me it's like you have all these, like, you know, it'd be like if they did like, I guess like a racing game for like Captain America's universe, but like never brought in the other Marvel characters, or like DC, or like any franchise where you have a bunch of like well-known characters. It's like, why don't you use all these characters instead of being like, we're bringing in fucking Wario's second brother, like, you know. It just, I think that's kind of exciting.
It is, but I mean, we're still waiting for Diddy Kong Racing 2.
But that's not happening.
Where's that?
Rare is fucking done. Well, actually, I guess they wouldn't have to make it, but
I'm still waiting.
Yeah, I'll put that on your fucking tombstone.
Bring back Whizpig.
If you go first, I'll put that on your tombstone. Diddy Kong Racing. I'm still waiting. And they're like, who the fuck is this guy? No, I agree.
If you go first, you know what I'll put on your tombstone?
Sleuth. Here lies a fucking a man that was ready to do the chewings. It's like, huh? Okay, so let's move on to Recommendation Nation.
Recommendation Nation.
Ding, ding, ding. Now it's become like a thing. Actually, I think it's been a thing for a while.
It's always been a thing.
Oh, exactly. Good save.
Tradition.
Nothing comes closer to home. Jesus. I should have never said anything. I know. I fucked up. So what do you suggest, or recommend, I should say?
Mine for this week is The Last Dance.
Okay, yeah, Trav had actually brought that up.
Oh man, I love it so much. It's the 8 or 10 episode documentary on
Michael Jordan, right?
The Bulls.
The
90s.
Bulls, okay.
Yeah, it's mainly the Michael Jordan show, but
as was the Bulls back then.
The whole team. Yeah. But it's really, really well done, and pretty much just half of it is watching all the amazing highlights, you know, from all those years. But the other good part is enough time has passed now that, you know, and they talk to pretty much everyone who is involved, and they can be honest about how things really went down.
Right.
So you have Michael Jordan, you know, talking about how he still hates people. Like,
Jesus.
Michael, I mean, he comes off pretty good in the documentary just because he was so awesome, but there's some, you know, it's not a perfect portrait. Like, it shows him doing some pretty bad stuff too. So.
Right. I mean, yeah, I think that's kind of.
All in all, it's an awesome documentary. I'm watching it again for the second time.
Nice.
Also, it's just a good, like, time capsule of the 90s. Just seeing all that 90s footage and makes me
nostalgic.
Remember back when it was really happening.
Yeah, I think that was the last time I actually really got into sports. I mean, I wasn't like super big into it, but like it was something that I could like kind of be interested in because like, yeah, I guess it was just like the last time I remember vividly the Bulls being like unstoppable and being awesome. Yeah. But I don't really remember any team that I ever since then that I was like, oh, that, you know, like everybody in the nation was like, hell yeah. For the most part, I mean, I'm sure there were people against the Bulls because of their team.
Everyone in the world.
Right. But that was
like they interviewed Dennis Rodman and like talk about all the crazy shenanigans he did. So.
Yeah, you sent me that thing with like Scottie Pippen, and I always felt bad for Scottie Pippen because he was always like, I don't know. I feel like everybody always thought he was like... I mean, he was super talented, but like, you know, nobody was making Scottie Pippen games.
Yeah, except for NBA Jam.
I mean, he was in that game, but yeah, like... Michael Jordan had his own shitty game. Hoops of Fire or whatever the fuck that game was.
Yeah. Yeah, that was crazy. But yeah, he was like one of the best players also, besides Michael, but the documentary talks about how like they wouldn't give him a new contract, so he was like not a very well paid player at all, and that's why he was like unhappy.
Oh, Pippen.
But just all kinds of stuff like that you learn about.
I mean, he was a workhorse on that team. I feel like he didn't get the glory that like I think everybody knew that he. I mean, obviously didn't get the glory like Michael Jordan, and he wasn't like he didn't like become like Rodman, where he was like the bad boy of the team, but he was like, you know, he was the one putting in the work and shit.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, episode 2 is about Scottie Pippen's early life, and episode 3 is Dennis Rodman, which is awesome. Yeah, Dennis Rodman. Hell yeah.
Lots of good characters.
Yeah.
Even Phil Jackson is a good character.
Philip Jackson. He's like, Merry Christmas. Okay, well,
What about you, sir?
I recommend the first Parasite Eve game on PlayStation 1.
Oh, nice.
I actually had never... I mean, obviously had heard of this game. I think back in the day, like, a couple of our friends were into it, but I never really watched anything other than, like, the opening cuts, like, cinematic for it. And I kind of wanted to play a role-playing game to a degree, but, like, also play a, like, horror game. And this was, like, legit just trying to be, like, you know, an action role-playing Resident Evil kind of thing. And, like...
Yeah.
It was really good. I think as the sequels went along, they got less and less RPG and more, like, just trying to copy Resident Evil, which I feel like didn't really work for this franchise. I think, like, if they had stayed true to, like, their role-playing roots, but had, like, the paranormal aspect and, like, horror aspect of it being, like, still central to the game, it probably would have succeeded. But yeah, the other 2 sequels they did, like, you know, didn't do so well. And, like, even, like, the third one they did was only released on, like, the fucking PSP or the Vita, and it's like, okay. Like, nobody...
Yeah, I played it back in the day, but I remember I didn't get very far, because I think I, like, couldn't figure out what to do.
Yeah, it was...
But the thing I remember most is, I think the menu music was, like, the greatest music I'd ever heard in my life.
Right.
It was so amazing.
Yeah, I really
was
like...
it the menu that had...
It, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, but I can't remember... I know what you're talking about, though. Yeah, like, the music, especially in that game, too, was, like, pretty good. The only thing I thought was weird is, like, there's only a certain amount of enemies in that game, so, like, unless you do a New Game Plus, you can't get, like... You can't level up to a certain point, and there's also a glitch in the game where, like, getting from level, like, 20-something to whatever else level is, like... It's an astronomical amount of experience, and then it resets. So it's like from 25 to 26 it takes like 1,000,000 experience, but then from like 26 to 27 it takes like 1,000. So it's some kind of like fuck up in the game that obviously will never get patched, because as much as it sucks that games are live services these days, if something's fucked up they can at least patch it, whereas back in the day if a game had like a glitch you were like fucked. That's the upside and the downside. Cool. But yeah, check it out if you haven't. It was one of those same things with me too. Like, I had never really played it, but I always wanted to play it. But like you, like, I think it was back in the day. I was kind of like, what the fuck? Where do I even get started with this game? And I literally had to follow like kind of a not a step by step, but like kind of like I followed a guide to a degree of like, you know, where am I supposed to go next? Because it is very much like, because you're like a police detective and you're like figuring out what's going on, and like to trigger the next thing in the game you have to go to the correct spot on the map, and it's like, well, you know, where the fuck are you supposed to go sometimes? And once you get there, what are you supposed to do? So it's like, yeah. Okay.
Cool. That's a good recommendation, Nation. Ding, ding, ding.
Ding. Okay, so we're moving on to the weekly spotlight. Willow. Okay, so before we start, Matt, I have a question for you. What's your favorite Sean Connery movie? No, if you could do magic, what would your go-to spell be? Like, if you had like one spell and you could do like magic. You're like to take my take off clothes of myself. I'm like, why?
Maybe like freeze time.
That's a pretty legit one. I feel like if you could freeze time, you could pretty much do like that. Kind of like makes it so you don't really have to have any other spell.
You become basically like God.
Right. Exactly.
So that's my spell, to become a human god.
Well, I feel like that's kind of like what every character that's evil in these old 1980s movies wants to do.
Or actually, it would be to have a magic acorn that I could throw at someone.
They're going to say a magic ape. I was like, okay.
Oh, yes.
A magic ape you can throw at somebody.
Magic ape.
They come to your house and they jump on the fucking person and rip their genitals off and rip their face apart.
The only thing magical about them is they're wearing like a wizard hat.
It's just an ape.
That's amazing.
True. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything. I mean, you know what's funny is I came up with this like question, but I don't really. I don't know.
The power of flight.
How about the power to move you? Wow, no. I mean, yeah, that's the thing though. Is like flight, super strength, super speed. Yeah, those are more like powers. But if you could cast that on yourself to have it forever, even then though, like I feel like that's kind of like the one you came up with. Like trumps every special, like any magical spell you could come up with. Being able to stop time is like. Or even, like, manipulate time would be, like, perfect. You could do anything, like you said. Like, even if it took you, like, you know, a year or, like, whatever to do what you need to do, like, you know. Say, like, you had, like, a spell that could, like, stop time and you, like... Oops. Did I mute you on accident?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry. If you could like stop time and say there was like a zombie apocalypse, you could spend like years just killing every zombie, and you know what I mean? Like that's how powerful that spell is. Because you could just do that and fucking like not, you know, you would have no repercussions. It's like it's pretty ridiculous, I think. But I agree.
Yeah.
That's probably the most. I don't know. Yes, I don't know. Being really, because like being really fast is just like it's a worse version of like stopping time, I guess. Because yeah. Because I mean, I guess if you're really fast, you could do the same thing as stop time, like the Flash. But
yeah, though now that I think of it, I think I would want a spell to do a little bit of editing on Willow.
Yeah. But you wouldn't really need a spell to do that. You would just need to be a good editor. So, let's move on to Willow. So, Willow is a 1988 American dark fantasy adventure drama film. Jesus Christ. Directed by Ronald Howard. It was produced by George Lucas and written by Bob Dolman from a story by George Lucas. It stars Warwick Davis, which this is like definitely like his most famous role. Like... by far. Val Kilmer. I don't know if this would be his most famous role. I mean, he was in Batman, but...
Yeah, Batman, maybe Tombstone.
He's been in a lot of, like, action films, too, I feel like, so, yeah, I don't know. Joanne Whalley, Gene Marsh, and Billy Barty. Davis plays Willow, a reluctant farmer who plays a critical role in protecting a baby from a tyrannical queen who vows to destroy her and take over the world. Oh gosh, excuse me.
So what? I'm assuming you'd seen Willow before, right?
Actually, no.
Or have you? Oh, interesting.
So
okay.
no,
So
like okay, so like yes and no. So the only time I've seen anything from Willow is when we all went over and spent the night at like Utley's house, like years ago in middle school. And I was completely not about watching the movie, so I didn't even like pay attention. And I guess like we had rented it from Blockbuster or something. So there was like a bunch of us in his room watching this on a tiny ass TV, and I was just like, okay, this movie sucks. Mainly because I was bored and I didn't really want to watch it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And before we even get into this movie, like my first note was like, I actually enjoyed watching this movie, but I will say as like this movie went along, there was definitely stuff in this movie they could have fucking cut. Like,
yeah,
like this is like the extended edition of a Lord of the Rings movie. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, I don't know. Speaking of that, this reminds me a lot of Lord of the Rings. What'd you say?
Yep. Some of it just drags.
All the stuff with all the brownie shots were like, okay, dude. I understand why these are in the movie. They're for kids, but I don't know. I have a rant about that later. But like,
well, we might get a little negative on this, but I will say I do really like this movie.
I
like the genre of movies. It's one of my favorite, like, type of fantasy adventure. Like, I wish there were so many more of these types of movies. So.
Right. George Lucas and Ron Howard, it's like, dude, you can't get any better than that. Like, Ron Howard is probably one of the best directors of all time. Like, he's
got some hits and misses, but when he hits, like, he's made some of my favorite movies.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really think of any movies he's done that were like horrible, personally, but
Solo.
I mean, that was way better than like any of the other Star Wars movies. I mean,
it wasn't horrible.
The only reason why that movie isn't like critically loved is because they took a character that like everybody critically loves, like, you know, not critically, but everybody loves that character, and they didn't want them to do anything like with his backstory to begin with, and he was able to make like a good movie out of it. But it didn't matter because regardless of what happened, like, you know, nobody wanted to see a fucking Han Solo movie, like, but Star Wars, like, they didn't want to hear it, you know, like, you know, because remember when before all this shit happened with like how bad like the sequels were, they had all these ideas for like a Yoda movie and like a fucking, you know, all these prequel movies that like nobody wanted, but like they were like, we're gonna have an origin for Yoda and we're gonna have an origin for this character. And I'm like, you know, the Solo movie was good, but because it came out around The Last Jedi and that movie was so fucking horrible, it pretty much shit on everything related to Star Wars. And it was Han Solo. So, like I said, it's like if they made an Indiana Jones, like, prequel that nobody really asked for, it's kind of like you don't really need to know, like, you know.
But in fact, they did. The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles.
Yeah, that sucked.
And everyone loves that.
I thought it was fucking shit.
I like it too.
You're like everybody loves that, and I'm like, I think not, but maybe, I don't know. I thought it was, I mean, that's maybe a little different, but still, it's kind of really an unnecessary thing. It's like taking a character and making them younger, or like making, like, look, he was this. Not only that, but you didn't really learn much about Han Solo, like how he got his name. Which, why do you have to make up his name? But anyway, okay.
We also found out why he called Chewbacca Chewie.
Because he was giving the chewins to people for free. He was a sleuth. But yeah, I think anyway. I guess like, I mean, that was like an extended defense of that movie, but only because I thought out of all the Star Wars movies that were done that were sequels besides like The Force Awakens, like, and even that movie had a ton of issues with it. It was the most, like, the one that was given the most care, I feel like, that I cared the most about. Even though, like we were saying, like, you didn't need Han Solo or like Lando to be in that movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Ron Howard, George Lucas, yeah, I totally agree. They need to make. I wish they would have made a ton more movies, like like this because this feels very like Indiana Jones, Star Wars era, like old school, like because they even have like the same fucking stock screen wipes they used to use, where it would like a scene would go and it'd fucking circle in to the next scene, or like it would like wipe to the next scene, that kind of shit. Like not all the time, but
all the special effects, so
right.
It feels very much like those movies, but
right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
I remember when the movie came out, like we were like 5. But I remember really wanting to see it, but not being able to, because I think it was PG-13, maybe.
Yeah, it contains tobacco depictions, Matt.
Oh man, horrible.
Which actually I can't remember. In this movie, maybe like somebody smokes a cigarette or like a pipe or something, but I don't specifically remember anybody like toking the fuck up a lot. Like, so that's why I was kind of confused. Because I was looking for the tobacco depictions, because when I started up this movie, it was like PG tobacco depictions. And I'm like, while I was watching the movie, I'm like, fuck that, people are getting fucking murdered left and right, and like, I don't know if there's any cuss words in this, there might have been, but like, in the beginning of this movie, fucking, this lady gives birth to like the chosen one, and they're like, she's like, kill him! And they slaughter the fucking
like
mother.
The 2 minutes of this movie, like 2 women are killed, one being ripped apart by dogs.
Right, like rat dogs.
Great way to start your children's movie.
It's also kind of like that's how things were back then. Movies like that's like when we reviewed. Go back and watch it, but we did a review on all the 8 movies, like not all the 8 movies ever made, but like Planet of the Apes films. The original ones, and then like beneath the Planet of the Apes, the trailer, it was like rated G, and like people are being fucking raped and shit. Alright, well, they're not being raped, they're being like fucking like blown up, and like there's blood everywhere. And it's like, dude, okay. Things definitely have changed, that's for sure. So actually, yeah, one of my first notes was that like, it was kind of hard for me to take notes because there were certain parts of the movie where I just wanted to watch it because it reminded me a lot of like Star Wars and Indiana Jones. But there were definitely parts that, yeah, we'll get to that, like that need to be cut and stuff. So, let's see here. After the contains the tobacco depictions note, I actually have a note that says, it says MGM logo and then a Lucasfilm production and a film by Ron Howard. It's like something you don't really ever see is like MGM logo, because that's like known for like James Bond stuff. Like I don't really know of anything else they really do besides Bond movies now. I mean, yeah. Lucasfilm and then Ron Howard, I was like, holy shit, dude, this is like, they're not fucking around.
Yeah, I don't remember because I watched it on Blu-ray,
mm-hmm.
So I don't remember I don't think Ron Howard had a logo on there.
Oh, like on your version?
New for Disney.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Well, yeah, it wasn't like a logo. It just said like before, like it said all the logos, and then it was like a film by Ron Howard.
Sure.
It was him with his ass hanging out. He was flipping off the camera. That was his logo. So this movie starts, and it's like, it has this whole like thing they put up on screen where it's like, it is a time of dread. Seers have foretold the birth of a child who will bring about the downfall of the powerful queen, Bub Morda. Seizing all pregnant women in the realm, the evil queen vows to destroy the child when it is born. So that's the setup for this movie.
Once again, starting off with some text.
Well, helpful text.
You're in for a wild ride.
Yeah, well, it was actually helpful text, unlike fucking Outland, which was not helpful text. I'm fine with some lines in front of a movie as long as it doesn't go on for like 10 hours and then like leads to nothing.
Well, speaking of movies like this, have you ever seen Legend?
A long time ago. It's like one of Tom Cruise's first movies, I think, right?
Yeah. The text is like, if you thought Outland was bad, it'll make you want to punch yourself in the face.
I want to think that I saw that movie a while back, and I can't really remember much about it other than like Tim Curry is like a devil in it or something.
Yeah,
but
it's pretty cool.
Also, like Robert Picardo plays like the fucking like hag in like the swamp. Yeah.
Swamp hag.
It all comes back to Robert Picardo. When we get big, Matt, we need to have him on.
Legend. Definitely.
And then a baby. Okay, so actually, it's funny because Trav started watching this movie and sent me a text within like the first 10 minutes, and I actually wrote down the same note, but like the baby is born and it's like crying like a motherfucker, and like the handmaid or whatever goes to like take it away and like save it, and like as soon as it gets put in like blankets, it instantly becomes like silent as fuck. And he was like, how the fuck did that happen? And I was like, yeah, I guess I didn't really think about that, but like the baby was instantly like
I want to talk about the baby because I read Roger Ebert's review, and he pointed out something pretty funny. Like, he gave this 2.5 stars.
Out of what?
He said it was out of 4.
Oh, okay.
But he said, one of the crucial problems in Willow is that we see so much of this baby. She's dragged from one end of the known world to the other, usually with a plucky smile on her face. And whenever something happens, we get an appropriate reaction shot from the baby. Hey, I like kids, but even baby Leroy couldn't have saved this character. Which I don't know what that means.
Yeah, it's probably why he's a hack.
They cut to the baby's face like 8 million times in this movie. It almost becomes like ridiculous.
I guess I didn't really think about it that much.
Yeah, I really noticed it this time. It's like, good lord, man.
Did you read the Roger Ebert thing first before you watched the movie?
No.
Okay.
No, I've been trying to read his reviews after I watch movies, and I was like, dude, he nailed it on that one.
I never really watched Siskel and Ebert. I thought they were always kind of like, I don't know, like they were pretty popular, but like, I mean, they have opinions, so like to me it's like a lot of times I felt like they were wrong about shit, but that was just because they had different opinions than
that's one of my all-time favorite shows, because like they would awkwardly yell at each other and like be really like actually mean to each other on the show.
I think I watched that show one time at your place because you guys used to watch it all the time, and I like didn't understand what the point of it was. I was like when I was younger.
Talk about movies, man, just like us.
Yeah, that's true. Except for we're not dead.
That's true.
Yet.
Give it a few more days.
Yeah, we're gonna swallow the atomic bomb. Okay, so where was I before that happened? Oh yeah, we were just talking about how like they didn't mess around in the 80s after the baby's like found to not be there. The evil queen orders the mother to be fucking killed. It's like, Jesus.
Yeah, basically like the Virgin Mary is executed within like the first minute of this
movie. Right,
movie.
Exactly. Yeah, this movie is very like fucking Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. Well, pre-Harry Potter, but
your traditional like fantasy,
right? Yes.
Story.
Yeah. Intro of the movie with credits. It's showing slowly the baby seems to be growing up, and it finally has more hair, and it definitely.
Even before that, her handler like puts her in puts the baby in the river or whatever to like float gently down a stream, and then these rat dogs like jump on her, and she's like, yeah.
That actually comes after this.
Oh, okay, sorry.
How dare
Take it all
you?
back.
Well, let's see here. Shit. Oh yeah, but like my point is the baby was like getting more hair, and it's like definitely more than a newborn. And she's on the run with the baby, and then like the hounds from the castle come looking for her. And my question was like, were they legit tracking her for like months to a year? Because the baby looks way older than like just like a newborn now. You know what I mean? Like at least the shot that they show of the baby, it's got like a full head of hair. And I'm like, I don't know how long that takes a baby to like go from like the baby was soaking in fucking like prenatal birth to like fucking like the next shot she's got like fucking full hair. So it's like definitely like definitely at least a couple weeks or months later or something like that, because the baby's like completely fucking, I guess those dogs just don't give up. But yeah, this is the part you were talking about where the rat dogs are in pursuit, and she puts the baby on a piece of ground, and then it's like somehow able to like be pushed away and be its own like flotation device, and she like
floating crap.
Moses the fucker away, and then they rip her ass apart. which was like, okay, holy fuck. Also, this is like the luckiest baby of all time because like the land didn't like flip over at all. It was like legit like fucking completely fine while going down rapids and shit.
The luckiest no one in the world.
The luckiest Leroy in the world. Even baby Leroy couldn't save this baby. I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean? So the baby's little thing comes to like a perfect stop, and it like gives the weirdest fucking look ever. Like, I can't really describe, but like this is one of the only big shots I remember of the baby that was like so weird because it like looks at the two like Willow's two like kids that are also like, you know, because the whole village is like whatever the fuck they're called. I don't know. They're like dwarves or some shit. Do you remember what they were called? Like what? Because everybody calls them Pecks, but that's like a racial slur for their Elwins, maybe. Yeah, that probably sounds about right. But like, it's like it looks so weird. But like for the rest of the movie, the baby never makes that face again. That was kind of like, what the fuck?
Oh, you get a lot of chances to see the baby's face.
Hell yeah. Sure. I'm not as obsessed with babies as fucking Mr. Eber was.
Leroy's.
Yeah. He's like, Leroy's.
Well, he did have a thing about like babies or kids like being in jeopardy in movies. Like, one of my favorite is his Baby's Day Out review. Do you remember that? Or did I tell you about that?
I remember you're like obsessed with that movie, but I don't really know much more about that than.
It has a dick in it. Of course, I'm obsessed. But
what happened?
And he's like, he hated Baby's Day Out.
Oh, wow.
He was so
what?
scared.
Oh, because he's that time that like he was a reviewer and he couldn't understand that it's a movie.
Right. But he's like, I remember when I was a little kid, I saw Mickey Rooney like on the edge of some skyscraper. All the other kids were laughing and cheering. I was terrified.
Dude, what the fuck is wrong with that guy?
It's a thing.
Jesus.
Anyways.
I was terrified. He's like, ah! I'm like, eh. So there's this little fat little person, thumb-looking motherfucker, walking up and being a bitch to Warwick Davis, and I was just like, dude, this guy needs to be fucking immolated.
Jeez.
Like, I already hated that piece of shit because he was such a asshole to like fucking Willow. I was just like, Willow didn't do shit, and he's just like, where the fuck did these seeds come from, bitch? I was like,
Wasn't he like the sheriff or something, the town sheriff?
I don't know what his role was because like they obviously all like liked this wizard guy that was like clearly made all the decisions. So I don't know if this guy was just like some really wealthy guy because he was like always talking about how he was going to get fucking Willow's land and shit. So, yeah. Other than being like a lazy bitch, I don't know what his fucking deal was. So they went into town and like the whole village is like little people and they're like having a festival. And
oh man, I want to talk about this festival.
Yeah.
Like you have to have a festival in this kind of fantasy story, or like in any like RPG that you play on Super Nintendo. It always starts with like a festival.
Right.
But like, there's this band playing, and did you notice that someone was definitely rocking an electric bass?
I was about to say the music sounded like too out of place for what, like, because when it showed them playing, it was not like exactly the same.
Bass, like,
right. It's like burm, 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 right. Yeah, the music definitely didn't like match up specifically with what they were like. It was close, but just a tiny bit off. That I was like, okay, this is not.
I love that so much. I was grooving.
Yeah. At first, I was kind of like, really, like, where's this? Because at first, I didn't know that a band was playing, so I thought it was just some goofy music being played because it was little people. And I was like, are you serious, Ron Howard? Like, what is this crap? Like, I thought this was just like, come on, just because they're little people, like, you know, like they're goofy motherfuckers and shit. But like it was actually like people were having fun and it was an actual band, so I was like, okay, this makes sense. If there wasn't, I would have been like, okay, this is fucking stupid. Not like stupid, but like it's goofy for no reason to make them look like stupid because they're little people and like, oh, they're goofy as hell.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you, Globs of Fun. Having a good, great review. Thank you so far. Hopefully you won't mess it up. There's a ceremony for a new apprentice of the wizard. And they're like, which finger can you control everything? And the first person picks like the middle finger, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah.
And then the second person picks one of the fingers that's not the pinky or the thumb, and same thing with Willow. And then he's like, no apprentice this year. And everyone's like, I was like, huh.
It messed up.
The rat dogs are pretty impressive in this movie, though. That's actually one of my notes.
Yeah, they're
like,
cool. They're cool looking.
I was like, dude, how the hell... Like, yeah, it's like... I don't know if they just put, like, a thing on a dog and just had it run. You know what I mean? And then for when it's, like, in, like, close-ups, they had, like, someone in the suit, you know, for when they stab it, I'm assuming. But it's, like... It's, like, stuff like that they just don't do in movies anymore, sadly, because, like, it actually takes time. Whereas, like, right. But this actually, like, looked like a legit thing.
Yeah, I love, like, all the creatures and stuff in these kind of old 80s movies.
Right.
I agree. I wish they'd still do more of that kind of stuff, but CGI is much easier and apparently cheaper, so.
I think, I don't know. I think it's definitely gotten cheaper. I don't know at the time how much cheaper it was, but I think it's one of those things where it's like, if you can spend more money, but it just be easier, sometimes they'll just fork over the money. You know what I mean? Because you see how big the budgets are for movies these days, and it's like, I think some of these movies, they don't give a crap how much money they're spending because they'll recoup the costs in the Chinese market. So it's just like, you know.
I hate to go back to it, but I just thought of Force Awakens again. Like, that thing started out strong with some, like, creatures, like some actual puppets and stuff. And I was like, this is great. And then by the end, they totally abandoned that, and you have those, like, CGI rolling, like, monsters that look like the worst cartoons I've ever seen. Like,
yeah.
They blew it.
Yeah, I actually remember when, like, The Force Awakens was announced, and J.J. Abrams came out and was like, we're doing, like, mostly all creatures for everything we can do, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and like they actually had a whole like panel just devoted like for an hour to him, like they had like one of the people coming out that was in the thing, and he's like, this is a creature, and it was like a guy that had like a shop on his back that was like walking around like the creature was, and it could interact with people, and I was like, dude, this is awesome. And then like, you know, The Last Jedi happened and, like, completely started the ruination of that because there were, like, everything in that movie was CG. There was, like, all those things running around that were CG. It was, like, the casino scene was 100% on a green screen, like...
Worst cartoon I've ever seen.
And then, like, I think by the time they did the last one, they were just, like, J.J. Abrams is like, well, I gotta salvage what I can. I don't have time to make 100 creatures. Like, I have to actually, like, finish this story out. It's gonna suck, but, like, what the fuck am I gonna do? That we legit don't have a second movie. It's like they did a trilogy with 2 movies. So, but I totally agree. I totally agree with you. Like I you know, that was the start of something good, and you know, they went the lazy and easy route and messed it up. So, Willow and his family take the baby to the council, and, like, as soon as they, like, walk in, everyone's like, the person that's, goddamn, the person that is, like, the reason for this, because, like, these dogs come into the village and start fucking shit up, and it's like, the reason for these dogs being here, that person needs to be fucking murdered. And then they
immediately like slink away.
Yeah, they try to start leaving, and then like the wizard's like, "Yo!" Like he's like, "Willow, get over here!" And he's like, "Shit!" And so like he brings the baby in, and like they're like, "Okay, well, you're gonna take the baby to the crossroads where like, you know." I don't know what they're called, but I think they're like the humans or whatever, like the normal sized people. Or normal sized people. Well, I guess our normal size. Their normal size is what their normal size is. But like.
The Daikini.
Yeah, and to the crossroads there and give it to like somebody, and then they're gonna just run back, like, because this is like fucking Hobbit or some shit. And because they get like all these people to come with them, like they get like, you know, first Willow, and then Willow's like, I guess like friend is gonna go with him, and then like he's like, you're gonna need like, you know, like a warrior, and so like the warriors are like, I'll go, and then like, then the fat thumb piece of shit is like, you can't go, you can't let like the best like warriors in our town go. And then the wizard's like, you know what? I'm sick of this shit. So we need someone to lead this. And like, you're gonna go. And he like points to like the one guy, and he's like, fuck off! And then like goes to like the next like fucking scene. And I think he says the character's name, and I don't know what the character's name was, so I just wrote down Fucko. Because he was like, Fucko!
I couldn't tell what he said either.
But it was just like goofy as fuck. There was a lot of parts in this movie that actually genuinely made me laugh because of how like there's a part later on in the movie that I'll talk about, like with the monster, that like cracked me up. That was like, it wasn't like goofy, like beaten to death Marvel humor. It was like legit, like this is like a legit reaction for the most part, and the situation is just goofy as hell. Like, So, I was like, so far this movie reminds me of like Hobbit or Lord of the Rings, because they're like little people going on a quest. So, very, like you said, what's the word? Fantasy kind of stuff. So, so we've got this conversation. Willow's about to leave. They're like, "Are you scared, Dada?" And he says, "No. Even with fairies in the woods that will put you to sleep for 100 years. And then like Willow's like, no, it doesn't bother me. Brownies, dragons, trolls that will skin you alive and take your face off. And he's like, fuck, you know I hate trolls. I was like, Jesus. Kids are like, are you sure you're not afraid of being murdered? I was like, his wife is kind of like interesting because she's not like a central focus of this movie, but like it's like the first time they've ever been like apart, I guess, and like she gives him something, and it's like for luck, and it's actually like she cut off her like really long braided hair and gave it to him. And I thought that was like a pretty legit scene, because it's like you can tell that, like, you know, even though Willow wants to be like able to do magic and stuff, like all he really gives a fuck about is his family. Like all he wants to do is come back and like be with his family and stuff. Like, I mean, obviously he cares about the kid too, but like he's not like, I'm seeking glory or fame. It's like he just wants to you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's a good lad.
He's an actual like character that makes sense. Which is something that I actually kind of like. Like, most of the stuff that happens in this movie, at least, like, makes sense to a degree. There are some things that I actually wrote down that were kind of like, eh. But, there's a part where, like, the wizard of the village throws a rock up in the air, and it turns into a bird, and he says, follow that bird! And someone says, it goes back towards the village! And he's like, okay, fuck that shit. Go towards the river. I was like, huh? Oh, shit, I think I fucking muted myself on accident.
You were muted for a minute.
But like, yeah, he's like throws that bird in the air, and he says, follow wherever that bird goes, and it's like someone's like, oh, it goes back towards the village, and then he says like, fuck that, follow the river. I was like, okay. One of the warriors that goes with them, I'm pretty sure it's the same actor, like the black little person that like was in Bad Santa.
Oh, that might be, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I've seen pretty much a lot of them, because I'm assuming there's not too many that like still work and, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I love this part though when they're like going on the journey, because the score is really awesome. Plus you see some like really cool matte paintings.
Yeah.
What do you think of those?
You mean like when they're like, I don't know, like I've never been a fan of like small people and journeys personally, so I'm not a huge like Hobbit person.
You're like, I need my people on their journeys to be regular sized.
I think it's just whenever I watch like people walking in a fantasy movie, it's just kind of like it doesn't interest me as much as it should. Like, I don't think it really has anything to do with their size, but I think a lot of the most famous ones are like, like Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, that kind of stuff. People are just walking, and I'm like, nothing wrong with people that like that kind of stuff. Obviously, I'm in the minority here,
really,
but
I like that.
It just kind of
like the cool landscapes.
Feel like there's no reason for it. But a lot of people like it, so like I said, I'm in the minority here.
My only complaint is that no one traveled in barrels in this movie.
They should have put that fat guy in the barrel and like smashed it. Because he really never gets his comeuppance in this movie, sadly. They stop Willow because, they stop because Willow says that the baby's going to be sick. And then, like, the dickhead guy says, she's not going to be sick, give her to me. And then she, like, throws a fucking nut up on his face.
Well, that's his comeuppance.
Yeah, I don't think so. That's not good enough. He needs his head cut off.
Good lord.
So then we got, like, a Darth Vader looking motherfucker in this movie that's, like, got a skull for a face, but it's just a mask. Which, honestly, I wish they would have, like, never taken the mask off of this character. Because it's not like it's played by, like, an actual, like, well-known actor like Christopher Lee that I know of. I mean, he might be a well-known actor, but it's not like... I feel like...
No, I think he's a stuntman. He's, like, the dude that played the German mechanic in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Just, like, a big brawny dude.
Well, you can't even really tell he's that brawny. You just see that he's tall. So it's, like, I got a very, like... Hound vibe to this guy, but like the Hound was like a way better character than this guy. Like this, not that I hate this character, but I feel like he would have done much better if they would have kept the like the thing on him, like the mask, and like you never really know much more about this character other than he's like this unstoppable badass. Because like one of the first things he does is he like walks in and talks to like the evil queen. And she's like, you're going to go with my daughter because she can't handle this shit on her own. And then he, like, instantly takes off his cool mask and it's like, okay. And it's not like
he's taking that thing off left and right in this movie.
And it's not like he's, like, super scarred up or, like, horrible looking or, like, deformed. He's just wearing a fucking mask for no reason. It's like, okay.
Well, what do you think of I wanted to talk about the villains in this movie because I think they're like a little bit subpar.
The evil overall. Queen or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's very, like, female Palpatine. Right. I felt like, I mean, not to shit on Palpatine, but like, that I felt that way, and then like the good wizard I felt was like just like a good Yoda kind of, or not a good Yoda. He's an evil Yoda, like a female like Yoda or something. Yeah. They legit just kind of reversed the stuff a little bit, and I was kind of like,
Yodette.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I wish this movie could have been. It could have had some better villains in it, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
don't really care too much about them, and they're not very interesting.
They weren't as bad as like most Marvel villains, but like
that's true.
That's
also true.
They also weren't like super like they had like one thing they wanted to do, and there was like no real character to them. It was just she wants to do something, and I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I said very Lord of the Rings. It seems Val Kilmer calls them pecs, which that's something that comes up a lot in this movie. Everybody fucking is a racist towards these like little dudes. They like literally people are calling like the little people pecs whenever they see them. Like they see like Willow, they're like, get the fuck out of the way, Peck. Like, fuck you, Peck. We're gonna boil you if you fucking try something. And I'm like, holy shit, dude! Like, what the hell?
Maybe they're delicious.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I didn't think about that. So Val Kilmer's character is Mad Mardigan, which I learned later on in the credits. That's one word. I thought that it was like two words. But even it being one word, I don't understand that. But
so what do you think of Val Kilmer in this movie?
I thought he was fucking awesome.
Yeah, this is my favorite thing that he's done.
Like he was like super charismatic, and he was like all over the place, and his like the way he like acted was like, I don't know. Like I feel like this is definitely like a pretty damn good actor in this movie so far from what I saw, and then I saw the whole movie. I was like, yeah, everything he does makes sense.
He's good at the comedy stuff too,
right? Which actually kind of shocked me that he wasn't in more stuff like this. I was like that I remember at least. Like,
well, another one of the best things he did was Top Secret, which, like, it's pretty amazing what he does in that movie because he's like funny and cool and like does all his own singing and dancing.
I don't think I've seen that.
Not many people can do that. Oh yeah,
maybe I have. I can't remember though.
It was same guys that did Airplane and Naked Gun.
I probably have seen it then, honestly. Goes to hand Val Kilmer the water because he's in a cage, and they like sort of F it up, and he like drops it, and he's like fucking licking his fingers. I was just cracking up. Next movie should be Hoosiers. Well, if anybody wants to redeem their points, you can pick whatever movie you want us to watch. It doesn't matter. As long as it's not like a porno, I guess. Peck must be a slur for a small person, I put. Yeah, I'm assuming. Val Kilmer is pretty damn good actor. Okay, so tiny person on a hawk sounds like, or goes flying by with the baby, and he sounds French. And then I put the brownies are tiny people in the woods. Brownies are all French people, apparently. They're all doing like these French accents, so I guess they're like another reason to hate these characters, that they're like doing these horribly shitty French accents. I guess it's like a Canadian French accent or something, but like
very cartoonish.
Yeah. I kind of like glazed over the whole scene where he gets the wand because I was just watching it and I was just like, that's when I was kind of like, okay, well, this is starting to kind of become interesting, because up until that point it was like the brownies were like, I was like, dude, really? I think whenever like people get tied down by like people that are smaller than them, I can't understand how the fuck they can't just get out of it. Like I'm pretty sure if I was tied down with tiny ass fucking things of dental floss, I'd be able to just get up. So like Willow goes into a tavern and is asking for milk, and they start throwing fucking lettuce and cabbage at him and tell him to get the fuck out.
Even the women are like, get out of here.
Yeah, they'll like cook him, and I was like, he's a fucking person, Jesus. Which also, it's like in this world, like the little people live in their own village and they're separated from everybody else, but everybody knows that they exist enough so that they like have a racial slur for them, and like they instantly treat them with fucking like hate as soon as they see him. So I don't know what that's all about in this movie. Maybe they need to do a prequel so they can see like all of the like little people like starting a war, and then maybe that's why everybody calls them pets. Or maybe everybody's just
they are evil.
Everybody's just assholes. So Val Kilmer is dressed up like a woman to avoid a lady's husband, and he comes in and they say Val Kilmer is called Hilda. The husband is looking for someone like that's cheating with his wife, and he's pissed, but then like when they're like, this is actually my friend Hilda, like he's attracted to her, so like he goes from like pissed to being attracted to this person he thinks is now a woman, but like he's like just as bad as his wife because he's gonna cheat on his wife with somebody else. And like he says like, do you want to breed? And like I was like, what the fuck? This is fucking disgusting.
Yeah, I was thinking about
that whole thing.
It, like,
who wants to breed? I'm like, eh.
I was thinking, would this movie be better if Harrison Ford was Mad Mardigan? Because it's kind of like...
Dude, fucking Harrison Ford should have been Willow. He's like, come on, cast a spell, Willow, and he's like, part-time. Part-time.
But Harrison Ford probably couldn't have pulled off this like cross-dressing thing as good as Val Kilmer, like the comedy.
Shit. We just got fucking cheered. 2000. Thanks, cadet.
Nice.
Holy shit. Freaking yeah. I forgot to do shout out to Yurimatsu for picking this movie this week. Kevin, our friend, he was the first person to redeem with his points. So if this is something you'd like to do, you can do that as well. Hopefully we're doing it justice and we don't piss anybody off that like this movie a lot.
Hey, I like this movie a lot.
I do too. Yeah, I don't think there's any movie I've ever watched that couldn't do with some like changes.
Careful.
It's true though. But no, yeah, I honestly thought the other day like how probably better Star Wars would be. Not the like this is probably sacrilege, but how much different how much different things would be if Han Solo wasn't played by Harrison Ford, but actually played by Kurt Russell.
Warwick Davis.
Yes, Warwick Davis for sure. And
Kurt Russell auditioned.
Exactly, that's why I thought that would be such, because as much as Kurt Russell has an ego like Harrison Ford, he doesn't seem to be like an asshole to his fans, and he would actually like not be shitting on the character of Han Solo the way fucking Harrison Ford awesome. Yeah, Harrison Ford despises it.
Kurt Russell should have been Mad Mardigan, dude.
Yeah. I mean, Val Kilmer does a really good job, so that's the thing is like, I can't say he would have been worse or better. He just would have been different, So, which is that's the same thing with Harrison Ford.
I thought about that when they did Tombstone.
Yeah, it just kind of sucks that it's one of those things where I think that's one of the big things that I would have liked to have seen as a Harrison Ford switch out for Kurt Russell, because then you would have had him possibly be in Indiana Jones too, dude. Because Kurt Russell's. Yeah. Is big, but I think he's never been as big possible. I mean, he might have been, but like,
no, not even
Harrison Ford like got all these roles just because of Han Solo and Indiana Jones, and if that was Kurt Russell, I mean, holy shit, dude! Like, can you imagine?
Yeah.
Anyway, enough of what could have been. What it could have been. I'm crying. Okay, so during the chasing, I don't think more things could have gone wrong, because so they leave and they all jump on this fucking cart, and Val Kilmer's driving the cart, and they're being chased by like the people that are after the baby, and during the chasing, like I said, I don't think things have gone more wrong. So like one of the wheels breaks, which like what the fuck, that's kind of like random, and like then like one of the the reins fall down. One of the brownies is like holding on for dear life, and then when he gets like brought back up, Willow finally gets the reins, and the other wheel breaks on the back somehow, and Val Kilmer is like barely holding on to the back with another guy holding on to him. I was like, what the fuck? This is like Pee-wee. Do you ever see Pee-wee's Big Adventure?
Yeah.
Like at the end where they have that chase scene and there's like Godzilla and Santa in a fucking sleigh, and there's all this shit behind somebody.
Yeah, it's an okay chase.
Like, I thought it was like out of control. Like, it was like, it's definitely one of those fantasy, like, okay, let's see how much shit we can get away with before this gets out of control thing. But like the thing that got to me was like, how often do wheels break on a fucking cart? Like, not only for one of them to break, but for two.
It wasn't designed for those high speeds.
I mean, all of them should have broken if that's the case.
That's true.
So, speaking of which, topic discussion. Well, give us a topic discussion for, I guess, next time. So they go and almost kind of like play chicken against another set of guys, and Val Kilmer uses a flail to knock one of the guys off, and the other guy just like. So like the other guy, this is like the same shit that kind of happened with like Indiana Jones, where like one thing happens and then it adversely affects another guy for no reason, and like the guy fucking hits a tree for no reason, but when he like falls off, it's like the Stormtrooper Wilhelm scream.
Yeah.
And that's the first use of that in this movie, and I have actually a note down every single time that it happens. But here's a little history lesson for people that don't know. The Wilhelm scream is a stock sound effect that has been used in a number of films and TV series beginning in 1951 with the film Distant Drums. And it's it's actually like most famous for, at least in popular culture, for like the sound designer Ben Burtt on like Star Wars, who discovered the original recording, which was found as a studio reel labeled "Man being eaten by alligator," and incorporated it into a scene in Star Wars in which Luke Skywalker shoots a stormtrooper off the ledge. So, which is funny because George Lucas worked on this movie, so I'm sure that, like, with ILM involved and all that shit, they, apparently they were using this movie, that in, like, a bunch of his movies and in Star Wars up until, like, the last movie I think it was used on was, like, Force Awakens.
Yeah.
They retired it because they were like, okay. I think it's hilarious, though.
I noticed it that time. I didn't notice it any other times.
Yeah, there's two. I think there's like 2 or 3 more times it happens. Willow casts spell that just like is random shit, and it like makes a spell, and it makes like an Ewok noise, and he flies up into a tree. It's like an Ewok noise, or like a what's it called? Like those little dudes in the sand, the fucking in Star Wars, not the
like the Jawas.
Yeah, the Jawas, or like an R2 sound. He's like, "Whoa!" Like flies up, and I was like, "Huh." So like this next scene, I kind of didn't understand. So like they go all the way, and they need to go to like this island, and they like kind of like break off. Like Mad Mardigan goes off on his own shit. But like Willow goes to like the island to see this sorceress that he's supposed to like meet, but he doesn't know. Like I don't know why he doesn't bring the baby, because like he leaves the baby with like the 2 tiny motherfucking brownie guys, and he's like leaves it, and like they're like, we'll guard him or guard her, and I was like, dude, they couldn't do anything. Like they wouldn't even be able to guard against like a cat or like even a couple like mice or rats, let alone like a human army looking for a baby. Like it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, there's a few times the story like it doesn't make a lot of sense in this movie.
Like that was really that was one of the main parts where I was like, that was I think the first part in this movie where I was like, okay, that makes no sense, because up until this part, obviously like the stuff that happened with the cart was like whatever adventure bullshit, but it was also like the 2 wheels fucking up. I was like, really? But like it wasn't so out there that I was just like, okay, like plot wise, it had nothing to do with the plot. It was just like, this was some Indiana. It's like the thing with Indiana Jones where they land safely on the snow with like the raft as their parachute, and then they live through all that, which is like a fun thing. Like it doesn't matter if it makes sense or not. It's like it's goofy, they would have died, but like it's for adventure's sake. Like, it has nothing to do with the plot. You know what I mean? For the most part. Whereas, like, if Indiana Jones was like, okay, well, I know that, like, where we are now is dangerous, and this place over here is dangerous, but instead of all of us sticking together, you guys stay here and guard this one thing, and then he'll come back and all the Nazis will be around him. It's like, like, that would make no sense. Like, so, anyway. There's a little sugar glider that ends up being like the sorceress, and I think this is like the first movie that has well, never mind, hold on. I was gonna say it's the first animal that I can remember, like a talking movie that started the whole like Dr. Dolittle bullshit, but like Dr. Dolittle was before that, and then Mr. Ed was like a long time ago. So that was wrong. Did you just come in? I think that fucking Kevin just came in when I said Nazis. He's like, Nazis and Willow? We're talking about, like, how something didn't make sense so they captured, and there's a heartwarming scene, so they're captured, and there's a heartwarming scene where, like, Mad Mardigan puts Willow on his shoulders because Willow can't walk anymore, which I thought was pretty legit.
Yep, I agree. I like that as well. It's kind of like Han Solo, he's redeemed himself in this movie and, like, cares about his companions.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, like, it's kind of like the character always was, like, a good person for the most part, but, like, they never had anybody that ever really, like, backed them up and said they were really that great. You know what I mean? So they're, like, it's like if somebody's addicted to drugs and you're, like, always around people that are like, dude, all you're going to be is be a drug addict, or, like, you're around people doing drugs, like, you're never going to, like, why even change yourself? It's like, well, if I'm a thief, then fucking everybody thinks I'm a thief. I might as well just be a thief. Like, that kind of a thing.
Yep. like the goodness of Willow, like brings out
Right.
his good side.
Willow fucked up a spell, and then like he turned like
What else do?
the sugar glider into like a raven. Um,
Does he ever complete a spell successfully?
Yes.
He does turn the sorcerer, or the what's her name, into her human form, I guess, right?
Yes, and there's actually another time when he does that too, or not when he does that specifically, but when he does a spell that works.
Okay.
But it's kind of something that isn't pointed out, but during the time, like, you know what I mean, like, it's kind of weird because they don't specifically like say anything about it, but like, but it's something that like it has to be the only reason for like why something happens.
Okay.
Excuse me, sorry. Give me a second here.
What happened?
Let me go back to my. I kind of like I hit page down and now I gotta like find out where I was again. I fucked up. Okay. Okay, past the Wilhelm stream, fucking up a spell.
I think this is the part where they're held prisoner.
Yes.
As my favorite line in it, from Val Kilmer.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Maybe.
Where he's looking at Joanne Whalley, who they got married in real life after this movie.
Yeah, I actually looked that up and saw that. That's like the lady that plays the evil queen or evil queen sorcerer's like daughter in this movie.
Right. But she goes, "What are you looking at?" And he says, "Your leg. I'd like to break it."
Yeah. Oh shit.
That cracked me up. Great delivery.
We got our second redemption for the movie for next week. So we're gonna be watching Hoosiers.
Nice. I love Hoosiers.
I haven't seen that movie in like fucking forever. I think I've maybe seen it once, if that. So I guess we'll see how this goes. It's a sports movie. And then we also have topic selection, so Travis will have to give us that as well, like what to talk about. Val Kilmer gets hit in the face with like this love dust because he's trying to like use like something to like a little spear that the brownies have to like pick lock a lock, and like they use like this very like love dust and hit him in the face with it, and like he like so I don't know how this stuff works because before it happened and like one of the brownies got hit and he was in love with like a cat. But, like, he gets hit in the face, and he's looking at all these different people, like the brownies. He looks at the raven, he looks at Willow, and he doesn't fall in love with them or the baby. But as soon as he sees, like, the sorcerer's daughter, he's, like, in love with her. So I don't know if it, like, took a little bit longer to go into effect with him, or what. He just looks like a goofy motherfucker until he, like, falls in love with her.
Can we talk about the brownies for a second?
Yeah, let's go ahead. I can move these notes up. No, yeah, they fucking
like you can tell they were shoehorned in. Like we need some comedic effect here.
Yeah, this is definitely for like kids. Like it's definitely like a thing for kids to laugh at.
Like, make it for dumb 2-year-olds to laugh at. And it's like it's okay to aim things for kids, but that doesn't mean you have to dumb it down.
Yes. No, I agree.
So,
yeah.
They kind of, not a fan.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I wasn't sure how you were going to feel about them, because I feel like sometimes, like, when we talk about stuff like that, I shit on stuff like this, and you're like, oh, I thought it was funny. But, yeah.
No, the effects are cool looking. I mean, you can tell it's not real, but
right.
It's a well-done enough effect.
Right.
Their voices are just, they should have been redone.
Yeah, I honestly don't really know what their reason for being in the movie was, because they took him to like the lady and like they gave him like the wand, but then like that should have been the end of it, because then their characters were literally just like taking up screen time that could have been on Val Kilmer or like Warwick Davis, like, or anything else, because the characters were like they would show them do something that actually had an impact on the movie that I was just like, bullshit. But, so, like, back to the scene where, like, he's able to, like, okay, so, like, he goes in, he's, like, in love with her while he's trying to, like, sneak in and grab, like, the baby back. And, like, I understand that he's, like, his thing, because he's enchanted and he's, like, in love with her right now. And, but, like, within a minute or two, the shit that he says, he's able to, like, charm her into, like, falling in love with him. And I was like, what the fuck just happened? Like, because it's, like, he's like, I love you, and gives her all this poetry. And then, like, she's about to kill him, and then he's able to, like, disarm her with fucking his words. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know. I feel like this character was like halfway good. Like, it was like, I don't know, like the lady or whatever, the sorcerer's daughter, was like kind of okay. Like, I felt like she definitely could have used more something. Like, because my thing about her is, like, I feel like they should have shown her being, like, super, like, evil like her mom, but her mom kind of treated her the way Palpatine treated Darth Vader, like, shitting on her and being like, you're a fucking idiot, why can't you do anything right, like, you know, just that kind of shit. And then eventually, when she's shown, like, love from, like, this character, like, she's actually like, holy fuck, there's something other than just being abused all the time. You know what I mean? Instead, it's like, she seems apathetic and she just wants to help her mother, and her mother's like, I love my daughter. And then when she finds out she's, like, betrayed her, she's like, fucking shit, I want to kill her ass! And I'm like, okay. Some of the motivations for these characters is a little out of control. I feel like Warwick Davis and, like, Val Kilmer are, like, super strong. Like, their motivations never waver, and they're always, like, faithful to their characters. But, like, really, I feel like this daughter was literally just put in the movie to, like, get with Val Kilmer.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Which sucks, because she could have been so much better. But then he kisses her, and then like, the guards rush in, and he cuts the tent down, and then he cuts his way to the, he cuts his way out of the tent, and he's, like, kicking ass, and Willow's like, you are great, and then he, like, falls on his ass. It's, like, one of the, I was, like, cracking up.
Jack Burton moments in this movie.
A few what?
Jack Burton.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that was, like, hilarious. Oh, yeah. I guess we're making Kevin want to watch this movie now. No?
Nice.
Go for it. It's on Disney Plus, like you suggested.
You didn't hear our first? Good thing you didn't hear the first part.
Right. You can go back and listen to us about that. So, as they're escaping on a sled, Val Kilmer does this weird thing where he goes, woo-ha! But it's, like, half a yell, and, like, it's just, like, half-hearted. So it's just weird. You have to, like, just see it. He's like, hoo-ha! It's like he wasn't sure what he wanted to do, and I was like, huh? It was so, yeah, I don't really know. Okay, so I have, like, almost a paragraph for this next part. Actually, I have more than a paragraph. Okay, so here we go. So there's, like, you know, there's magic in this movie, and there's fairies, there's brownies, like, gnomes, whatever you want to call them, I guess. You remember, like, whatever the Willow's people are, you, like, remembered what their name was. I'm assuming there's dragons because they talk about it in the beginning. But this scene that I'm about to describe happened in this movie, and not only happened, but I feel was, like, the most outlandish scene in this movie. So they're sledding down the hill, and they pass through all this stuff and, like, a crevice, and, like, they actually go through a ravine. And I'm like, not a big deal. And Val Kilmer falls off, like, the back of the sled. And he starts to kind of roll, and he continues to roll, and he's rolling for a long time. And meanwhile, you know where I'm going with this. Meanwhile, Warwick Davis is still on the sled. And he comes to, like, a village and, like, sleds right through the front door. So, like, it's, like, fucking Home Alone style in reverse. So, you know, there's, like, whatever. It's not that fantastical. You could probably aim yourself that way, even though this sled didn't really have, like, any way to aim itself. It was literally just, like, a fucking, like, I don't know. It was just, like, a weird thing. But it didn't have any steers. And Val Kilmer, like, comes down the hill. He's still alive. And he's like not in a snowball, but like in a snow fucking cylinder. And he had rolled so much that it like fucking rolled him up. And not only that, but he hit the same building Willow hit. And not only that,
like a pig in a blanket.
Right, but like Willow shuts the door, he hits the front door and is instantly free and is like perfectly fine. I was like, what the fuck? Like, yeah, it was just like, okay.
Yeah, that would happen in real life.
Yeah.
That's scientifically accurate.
The guy would have to be scientifically accurate in a magic movie. The guy would literally, how long would you have to be rolling down a hill to...
And why were his head and feet still sticking out of the side?
Yeah, this was like, bar none, the most cartoony thing in this movie. Like, and I'm including, later on in this movie, they accidentally turn a fucking, like, cauldron sentient, and it walks around and tries to kill Warwick Davis. Like, I don't know. What do you think about that? It probably didn't. You probably didn't think much of it.
Cartoony. It's definitely a cartoony moment.
It didn't piss me off. I was just kind of like, it was like when both the wheels broke off the thing. I was just like, what the fuck is going on right now? So the army rides up to the castle. Okay, I like skipped over a bunch of shit. Probably because this part wasn't really that interesting.
One of the parts that dragged.
Yeah. So the army rides up to the castle, and they're in, and they get super close, and Val Kilmer is able to close both doors and barricade at the last second. And it almost sounds like they're like, oh. Like they're like disappointed. Let's see here. So trolls are in this movie. But they're like unlike any trolls I've ever seen in like any movie ever. They're like these little like black hairy things, like monkeys that like can crawl on walls and shit like Spider-Man.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. They're kind of like ape monsters.
Yeah, but like Willow turns one into like a gross brain thing, and it hatches 2 worms, and he kicks it into the fucking water, and then it like turns into a fucking dragon somehow. Yeah. So I don't know if that was a fucked up spell or like what the fuck happened there. But like the funniest thing about this is like, so this thing like rises out of the water, and it's fucking like a 2-headed dragon essentially, and pretty much like the bad guys that are there to kill like 2 people instantly are like, everybody runs out the front fucking door, and Val Kilmer runs next to them, and everybody, it's like such a realistic reaction because everybody just runs out like they're scared, and then they realize like, fuck, we need to get like Val Kilmer. So then Val Kilmer runs back in, and they all chase him back in. Yeah. But like they're all like so fucking like shocked and frightened by this thing that they're like, fuck, and then they're like, oh wait. That's like one of those things in this movie that's like really funny and like realistic. I felt like as far as like the reaction of the people, like they were like, I mean, like if you saw something like that and you really never seen something like that, you'd be like, what the fuck? Like everybody just like left and then like came back in. But like,
yeah, and Val Kilmer's face is hilarious.
Right, like when it rises out, he's like, oh.
But that's, I think, the biggest problem about from here on out to the end of this movie. Like these 2 like armies are conflicting, but like it doesn't matter at all. You don't.
You're right, exactly.
Like, and there's so much battling between them.
There's actually like, 2 back-to-back huge battles that really don't do anything.
Right, it's like the least interesting battle of any movie ever.
Yeah.
And it takes up so much time. That keeps cutting back because they're trying to do the thing that Star Wars did with cutting between the different conflicts, but this one has no consequence at all.
Well, the thing is with this, it's like I also felt this was kind of like weak as far as like they have a thing where like I guess like Val Kilmer had set all these traps up, and legit it's like before another army shows up, it's literally like everybody trying to grab Val Kilmer while they're fighting this dragon. And they can't fucking do it. He's like going in pipes and doing all this other shit. And I'm like, it's one fucking person. Like, I thought that was like okay, so I take it back. That was probably the most unrealistic part about this whole movie. They like legit, it's like a goofy like Home Alone thing. They could like realistically just grab him anytime they wanted to, but like because he had to have all this shit go off, they like, you know, had all this stuff like traps and stuff happen, and then he goes into a fucking like pipe and somehow gets away, and then like, you know, just other random shit happens. But then the rest of the movie, it's like not like that. So I don't really understand why they just randomly were like, let's have this part in here that like takes up a bunch of time that doesn't make any sense. You know, it makes sense if like he funneled them down this area and then like shot them with a bunch of shit and then like, you know, ran into the next area and they couldn't get behind him. But there are parts where he's literally out in the open and they don't fucking do anything. Like people are just walking right by him, like going to fight the dragon. But like, what they do have no impact on what happens to the dragon because he fucking kills it. Like, they're fighting it for so long that he goes up, he saves Willow, and then he fucking jumps on the dragon and fucking stabs it in the head and it blows up. And then, like, the other army shows up, and there's, like, a lot of them, but not enough to, like, stop fucking Darth Vader from leaving with the child. And then, like, he leaves with the child. And then in the next scene, there's, like, way more soldiers. So it's like, did they just, like, they didn't try to stop him while he was leaving? Or what? Like, yeah, it was kind of fucking stupid. But the dragon in this movie is pretty legit. It's definitely different looking. It's, like, all, looks like, I don't know if it's, like, claymation or what the fuck it is. Because it's, like,
it's
a
stop
puppet
motion
or something, style motion.
Assisted by, like, morphing technology.
It's, like, the same shit they use, I think, for that worm in, Star Wars in the crater, right?
Yeah, maybe.
But it's legit. So like, then they have a scene where like everybody goes to confront like they go to the Queen's castle because that's where like the fucking baby's been taken, and like. I feel like the last, like, when they did this, I was like, they could have just, like, skipped that last scene and just came here.
Oh, yeah, totally. And also because at this point they start showing, like, the ceremony where they're going to sacrifice the baby.
Dude, it takes so fucking long.
Well, not only that, but it's unclear, like, how the time is passing. Because, like, the guy's brandishing a knife, like, over the head, which is, you know, what you want to see in your kid's movie. A knife, like, in a baby's face. But then like there's a whole night passes after that where they're and then they're still doing the ceremony.
Right, I mean that's the ceremony takes so long. It's like days long apparently, because
yeah, I think it's just incompetent editing. Or you know the way they slapped this together is.
I mean,
makes sense.
I mean, I understood that it was literally just a really long ceremony, but I understand why. Like,
but from the standpoint of the movie, like why let's get this thing over with.
Yeah, but I mean, I understand why it like I don't like that they took them that long, but like the ceremony itself, it just like, does it literally like there's a ceremony that like takes like a day or more? You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck? Like, not only that, but like, so like she starts like turning everybody into like pig cops from Duke Nukem, and like. Willow actually, this is the only other time I think when he like does a spell correctly, because he's holding this wand and he's the only one that's not turned into a fucking like pig cop. So I think he's like chanting or doing something with the wand because it's glowing that like protects him. Yeah. But like then like the fucking evil queen disrobes for a second to put on another robe, but she's like a fucking mummy or something. Yeah. Like I didn't understand that. I was like, wait, so why? Not only that, but so like my whole thing, like the biggest part about this that was kind of a problem is like they did not explain what the reason for like getting rid of this baby was. Like she trying to make herself live forever, like because she's old. Is like the baby supposed to like grow up to like stop her? Because obviously that wasn't even an issue. She just fucked herself, like. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it was very... I like that mummy.
I also like the wizard, like, entourage that she has. Those wizards are cool.
It's like Yoda. It's like what Yoda versus Palpatine should have been.
Yeah. Especially because at the end of the movie, they all would just pull out swords.
Dude,
When was the last time you saw a wizard, like, fighting with a sword?
dude, fuck that shit when fucking they're fighting over the wand and one old lady punches another old lady in the fucking face.
Yeah, that was laugh out loud.
I was like, dude, this is the most realistic fucking wizard fight I've ever seen. Like, fucking people actually hitting each other, like, instead of being too frail to do shit. It's like, dude, this is life or death. Use whatever you can to win. Like, so, like, the Willow finally turns the good sorcerer back, and she's, like, an old person now. But they bring everybody in one by one. And this is what you're talking about also, I feel like, with, like, how long was this shit? Because, like, the time is so out of control because they're doing... Not only is it, like, they're like, we're going to attack at dawn, but, like, instead of doing, like, a mass spell and turning everyone back, she fucking, like... They bring people one by one into this tent and turn them back from pigs to humans. And I'm like, that's like hundreds of people. Like, I was like, this is going to take so long that the freaking baby is going to be like a pile of dust by the time that they do all this. It's like,
yeah, I thought they were just about ready to, like, slit his throat.
Yeah.
Like,
and then it's like next, well, not only that, but they don't even, like, slit its fucking, like, they don't even try to kill it. Like, in the ceremony, for as far as they got, they bring the knife to its head, and all they do is, like, cut off a thing of its hair. And I'm like, so how far does this go? Like, did you legit just need a thing of its hair, and then you could just banish it wherever? Because if that's the case, they could have just, you know, well, I guess they needed the baby regardless, because they couldn't even get close enough to get the hair. But to me, it's like, they had the baby at one point, and if all they needed was the baby's hair, why didn't they just cut the baby's hair off, and then the dude could have just ran it over? She did the ceremony, and then it just would disappear wherever it was. Like, does it specifically have to be there? Like, that's what kind of sucks about magic sometimes in movies. It's like, things are super unclear as to, like, what the effect will be and, like, what is needed to make the effect happen. So, anyway, so next scene, magically everybody's fine, but it's still dark out. Willow and the good sorceress stand before the castle alone. Reminds me a lot of Gandalf and whatever his fucking name is, Bilbo. Guy falls off horse, and that's Wilhelm Scream number 2.
Oh, nice.
People got fried with hot oil. So this is a part that I was like, fuck this shit. So, like, there's this huge battle going on, and, like, the brownies fire a catapult, like, with a bunch of spikes on it, and it, like, fucking kills some actual humans. And I'm like, you know, and that's Wilhelm Scream number 3.
What's wrong with that?
Because they're fucking doing it. Those I don't know, characters to me, like, that are, like, characters like that should have zero impact on the movie. Like, which I guess in the long term of things, those 3 dudes that got killed, that did have zero fucking effect on the movie, so it's whatever. But it was just, to me, it's like, come on, dude. When the evil queen gets thrown into the ceiling, it's like Dummy City. It was like cracking me up. And they have this wizard's duel or like sorceress duel. Fucking like, she gets thrown into the fucking ceiling and she's like, wow.
Also, at some point, Willow just loses his cool, and he's like, "You stupid hag!"
Yeah, it was awesome, dude. He was like, "You fucking, you know, you stupid hag, I'm fucking more powerful than you, or her, or anybody." And he does, like, a fucking... So, okay. Val Kilmer's dead-ass friend has, like, a major fucking overbite. I have to say that before we fucking, like, move on. Like, his friend / like, asshole friend that, like, is like, you're always gonna be a fucking, like, thief, you piece of shit. And then he, like, decides to, like, help out in the end. Like, when he dies, his fucking, like, teeth are like, "Argh!" I'm like, okay. So, yeah, sorry about that. Some things I missed. They accidentally turn some cauldron thing into a living being, and it tries to kill Willow, and then he pushes it outside. On the stairs, somehow the bad guy fucking gets ahead of Val Kilmer, even though he's behind him, like on the stairs. He, like, warps ahead of him. In the wizard's duel that I'm watching right now, I've never seen this before, but an old lady punched another old lady during a fight.
That was so great.
Yeah.
Right after, like, cutting back from another battle, so it's just, like, cutting from
like,
an old
boom!
punching in the...
Like, bum fights.
It's great.
Also, first time that I've seen a magic trick like trick a wizard, and not like a magic trick like Harry Potter, like a sideshow magic trick someone that can actually do magic. Because fucking Willow is like, I'm gonna send this baby to some place you'll never be able to get her. And he like fucking does like a fucking magic trick, and she's like, ah! Like she's fucking horrified. She's like, impossible! Unlimited power! And I was just like, holy shit, dude. And then she like does the 80 movie cliche where she like fucking kills herself or whatever. She like holds.
I couldn't tell what happened.
So she like raises the wand to the sky, and like a lightning bolt hits it as she's
knocked over like a bunch of
like she's casting a spell, and then she like somehow gets I think she like transports herself to like another land, and I was like, I don't understand. That's the thing that sucks with magic. Like I said, you don't
do anything.
You don't know what the fucking happens. All it does is it takes her away somewhere, and she's dead apparently, or she's to another dimension. But like, what was the effect?
That was my last note. How does she die? Because I couldn't figure out what happened.
I don't. Yeah, that's the thing. I just assumed that like the ceremony that she was trying to send the baby like to a different place and get rid of it forever happened to her, but like, there is no like what's the final step? What'd you say? Right.
What was the?
Like, what did you? What was the final step of the spell? That's the problem. It's like in this and a lot of other movies, they don't say like, we need this, we need to do this, and we need to do this, and it's never communicated to the audience. Which you don't have to communicate everything to an audience, but like something that fucking out of control, you kind of want to know what the end game goal, like on a time clock for a fucking thing like this is, because then they could just keep doing like they did here and just extend it till it like legit. You watch this movie, there really would be no like consequence, because like you never know when like the end is. So it's like this movie has a lot of wipes like Indiana Jones and Star Wars, which makes sense because these are like my last notes because George Lucas was involved with this. Okay, so I know the little brownie parts are putting in this movie for kids, but there's so much fucking bullshit I can stand. Like, I guess I could see the dwarves maybe, or like fucking hobbits or Warwick Davis doing stuff like this. But even so, come on, they're fucking brownies. Give me a break. They're tiny shits. That was one of my rants for that. Like I can fucking like, I can accept a lot of things, but like, you know what I mean? Like, they're not even like half the size of a human like Willow or less. They're like fucking like the size of my fucking hand here. Like, what can they do? Nothing. They can't even do magic. They're not like fairies. They're just fucking Lilliputians or whatever.
Now you're sounding like some of the people in this movie. Are you gonna call them Pecks?
No, that's too good for him. I'll call them pricks. No, I mean, I think you agree. They're fucking useless shits.
I don't like their cartoonish voices that were.
I don't want to shit on them because I like the actors that played them, because I looked them both up and they've been in a lot of other good stuff.
Yep.
But it's like they're all doing these shitty like stereotypical French character voices. They're doing like, they're obviously like goofy motherfuckers, but they're also like what's the point? Like, yeah, they killed those 3 guys, but like that had no, it was just in there to be like, look, they did something. I'm like, dude, they should have fucking been done as soon as fucking like they led Willow to like, or took Willow to the person to get the like branch, because literally all that happened then is they just tagged along. Like, they were never an actual guide like they were supposed to be, like, because Val Kilmer pretty much was his protector, and like he knew where he had to go, you know what I mean? Like, he had to go to that fucking city, which that actually didn't mean shit either. He was supposed to take her to like that fucking like thing, and like the people were there, but like literally he just left them with like Val Kilmer and like the lady, which it's like, so were the king and queen just dead? Like, they never really show what happened. Like, those people were unfrozen because they show them later, like during that scene, but it's like, what the fuck happened? Like, I feel like they kind of stretched out shit too long in some places, but when shit needed explanation, they didn't. They just kind of like cut to the end. We're like, okay, fucking Willow goes back to his fucking family and hugs his wife.
Yeah. This movie is over 2 hours long. And you could edit it down to like an hour and 40. I think.
No, yeah, I agree.
Be way better. Chop out 20 minutes and you're golden.
Yeah, no, I agree. Classic song at the end. I thought that was like the song, like the theme of Willow is pretty fucking classic.
Oh yeah, love it.
Yeah, I think a lot. I didn't even know that's where this came from, and then I was like, "Holy shit, this is from this movie." So like I said, I learned that in the credits that Mad Mardigan is actually one word. I thought it was more, but I just thought that he was like mad or like he was insane Mardigan, but I guess it was like Mad Mardigan. But okay. Funny thing is, my last notice is, I feel what the world needs now is Willow too. So, comes full circle. I think what I mean is, I think the world needs more movies made like this from like George Lucas and Ron Howard and like people involved like that, like people that give a shit. And honestly, I could see this movie being on Disney, like a sequel being on Disney Plus, like a like you were saying, like a Mandalorian kind of thing, where it's an episodic or even like just a movie thing and being really good. Whether or not, that ever happens or it would be that good, but it has to be like taken with care, because it cannot, if they ever do a sequel, they can't just be like throw it out there to throw it out there. There'd have to be like, and they need to fucking learn how to fucking get a better editor if that guy's still alive. Don't hire him again, please. So next time it looks like we'll be covering Hoosiers. And I'll have to get a hold of Cadet Trav for this, because it looks like he said, because he also nominated a topic for us to talk about being Star Wars. I'm gonna have to. Oh, no. I'm gonna have to ask him to be a little bit more specific.
Hasn't he listened to?
I think he's gonna have to be a little bit more specific or something, because otherwise we won't be covering Hoosiers. We'll be covering Star Wars next week. So yeah, I'll have to get a little bit more specific about like what he wants us to talk about specifically in Star Wars, because otherwise, that's such a broad topic. We have and we could talk forever about it. So,
well, thanks Kevin for picking this one.
Yeah, shout out to
like Willow a little bit less.
Yeah, shout out to Yurimatsu Kevin for nominating this, being the first person to redeem for the Buddy Shotz movie selection. Looks like next week, like I said, Trav is up with his selection, Cadet of Hoosiers. And as long as nobody has redeemed it, people can, always do this. And we will talk about whatever movie that you decide for us to watch. We were picking them out before, but I think it's kind of fun for us to watch movies that maybe we wouldn't think of to watch and talk about them. Any thoughts on Willow, Matt?
Good movie.
Yeah.
A little long.
Yeah.
A little draggy.
When I booted this movie up, and I saw it was 2 hours, I was like, well, this movie's not going to be 2 hours. This movie's going to be like 2 hours and like 30 minutes or more, because I'm going to have to like pause to take notes. So, generally movies are a lot longer for me because I have to which I'm sure you have to pause every once in a while and take notes. I generally seem to have more notes than you, but I think that's maybe because you remember things about it and can just bring them up on the fly, or you can play off the notes that I do, which is fine. But I agree. I think this movie is actually a good movie. I would definitely say if you haven't watched it before, definitely watch it, but you make sure you have time free. This is like a James Bond movie. Like most James Bond movies, they could have fucking cut it down. But it's a good movie, and I wish there were more movies like this, honestly. Like, more movies that were made with, like, obvious care and, like, heart, and, I don't know. In the end, it's like, I feel like there's not enough movies that, like, have a happy ending these days. I think a lot of movies are just trying to be too gritty, just to be for the sake of it. And I think this movie is, like, brings back that old, like, fantasy good guys win, the bad guys lose, but there's like stakes and stuff like that. So
definitely.
Just next time, guys, cut it down. We don't need to fucking see every single fucking thing that happens. So, any last thoughts, Matt?
My final thoughts are just I love the fantasy element of that electric bass being played in the festival.
They're like fucking Gandalf starts shredding. I'm like, huh? He's like, fly, you fools! I'm like, go. Okay, yeah, right. It was another good one, man. So yeah, we will be back next week with Hoosiers. So, peace.
Yeah.
Bye. Another one in the books.